Hey guys, tonight we step into a world where the morning is just beginning to breathe. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and blooming wildflowers. A pale band of gold stretches across the horizon, and somewhere in the distance a rooster calls, its voice scattering the last remnants of night. You can almost feel the weight of the air pressing gently against your skin, as if urging you to slow down and take it all in. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you can, let me know in the comments where you're listening from tonight and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You watch the sower step out into the morning light, his figure outlined against the fresh dawn like a quiet silhouette in a painting. The hem of his robe brushes the tops of the grass, still wet with dew, leaving a darkened trail that quickly fades as the sun rises higher. You can tell he has done this countless times before. There's no hurry in his stride, no anxious glances over his shoulder, only the steady rhythm of one who knows his task and trusts the one who called him to it. His face is turned slightly upward, not enough to see the sun directly, but enough to let the warmth of its light meet his eyes. Every breath he takes is deep and slow, as though each one carries a prayer. The bag slung over his shoulder is worn from years of use, its fabric frayed, yet strong enough to hold the treasure within, seeds, each no larger than a grain, yet holding the promise of something far greater. Now you feel the faint crunch beneath your own sandals as you walk alongside him. There's a hush over the land. Not silence exactly. You can still hear the soft call of morning birds, the faint rustle of wind through olive trees, but a deeper kind of stillness, the kind that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. The light spreads across the hills in slow waves, chasing away the blue shadows of dawn. The sower stops for a moment, and you can sense he's listening, not to you, not even to the birds, but to that voice that speaks without sound, the voice that once whispered the stars into place. His hand dips into the bag, and you see the seeds resting there, dry and small, almost weightless in his palm. You realize that in this simple act, he's holding something holy. These seeds have no voice, no will of their own, but within them lies a design older than the hills, a design set by God himself. He steps forward again, and you match his pace, the hem of your robe brushing the earth just as his does. The path stretches ahead, not perfectly straight, but winding gently through the fields. The air smells faintly of tilled soil and distant fig trees. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the sea is stirring, though its sound doesn't reach you yet. The sower glances at you briefly, a look that says, without words, pay attention. This matters. You find yourself leaning in, not physically, but with your mind, your spirit. The first sweep of his arm is slow and practiced, scattering the seeds in a graceful arc. They catch the light as they fall, like tiny motes of gold drifting through the air. You watch them land, some bouncing lightly against the soil, others slipping quickly out of sight. For a moment, you think of how quiet this work is. No applause, no shouts, no music to mark the moment. Just a man, the earth, and the seed. And yet, somewhere in the depths of your heart, you feel it. Heaven is watching. The ground ahead glows faintly in the morning light, as though waiting to see what will happen next. You keep walking beside him, the sound of your footsteps blending with his in an unspoken rhythm. With every step, you sense that something is beginning. Not with noise or spectacle, but with the smallest, most ordinary motion in the world, a seed leaving a hand. Warm soil crumbles softly, beneath the sower's feet as he moves forward, each step pressing gently into the earth. You feel it too, the faint give under your sandals, the way the ground shifts slightly, carrying the memory of countless seasons before this one. The soil is dark here, rich with the remains of last year's leaves and the quiet work of worms and roots. There's a comfort in knowing that the ground has been preparing itself long before you arrived, as though God Himself has been tending it in secret. The morning light has grown stronger now, wrapping the hills in a gentle gold. A few low clouds drift lazily overhead, their shadows sweeping softly across the field like the hand of someone smoothing a blanket. Somewhere in the distance, a shepherd calls to his flock, his voice carrying across the open space in a rhythm that matches the sower's stride. You glance down at the sower's feet. His sandals are worn, the straps darkened from years of dust and sun. Bits of soil cling to them, and as he walks, the edges of his robe catch at tiny stalks of grass, releasing little sprays of dew into the air. It's the kind of detail most people wouldn't notice, but here, in this still moment, you notice everything. Even the faint creak of leather, the soft rasp of fabric, the sigh of wind through the barley heads nearby. The sower pauses again, shifting his weight slightly as if testing the firmness of the ground. He reaches into the bag and draws another handful of seeds. You watch his fingers curl around them, holding them for just a breath before letting them spill forward. Some land close to his feet, sinking instantly into the loose soil. Others drift farther, riding the breath of the wind for a heartbeat before touching down. There's a rhythm to it now. Step, reach, scatter, breathe. It's almost like a prayer made with the body instead of words. And you realize this is worship, not in the way of temples and choirs, but in the quiet act of working with creation, trusting that God will do what only He can do. As you walk alongside, the scent of the earth rises up more strongly, deep, warm, and a little sweet. It clings to you, finding its way into your robe, your hair. You imagine how this scent must linger on the sower each day, even after the sun sets and the fields are still. The ground here is forgiving, each step sinking just slightly before springing back. You glance ahead and see patches where the soil is darker, more finely turned, ready to welcome whatever falls upon it. The sower doesn't rush to reach them. He moves at the same unhurried pace, knowing that every place has its own time. A pair of doves land a short distance away, tilting their heads as they watch him. They're cautious but not afraid, perhaps sensing that there is enough here for all. The sower scatters another arc of seed, and for a moment, the grains sparkle in the sunlight like tiny stars breaking free from his hand. You realize that this work, this quiet, repeated motion, isn't just about the seed or the soil. It's about faith. Faith that something invisible will take root. Faith that the hidden will one day be revealed. Faith that the one who sends the rain and the sun has not forgotten the field or the one who tends it. The sower steps forward again, his shadow stretching long and soft beside him. You match his pace, the ground beneath you breathing in the press of your steps, ready for whatever comes next.
Seeds fall gently, each carrying hope in silence. You can see them tumbling from the sower's hand in slow arcs, catching the sun for a brief moment before disappearing into the soil. Each one is so small, light enough to be carried away by the faintest breath of wind, Yet you know, because the scriptures tell you, that within each is a mystery older than the mountains, a design hidden and patient that will not reveal itself all at once. You hear the faint sound they make when they land, soft, almost like the patter of light rain on dry leaves. Some land close, right where the sower's sandals have pressed the ground down. Others scatter far, almost vanishing into the shimmering haze of the field. You find yourself watching each one as though it were alive, and in a way it is. The air feels warmer now. The sun is climbing, and its rays stretch farther, brushing the tops of the stalks and lighting up the dust motes that dance in the breeze. You can smell the mix of fresh earth and something faintly floral drifting from the wildflowers at the edge of the field. It's a scent that makes you want to breathe more slowly, as if to hold the moment in place. The sower doesn't look hurried. His eyes move over the field, not in judgment of where the seed will land, but in acceptance. He knows some will find a good resting place, and some will not. That's not his burden to carry. His work is to scatter faithfully, without holding back. You glance at his hands again. They are strong, but not harsh, lined from years of labor, yet careful in how they release each handful. Every seed leaves his palm with the same quiet blessing, as if he is saying without words, "Go where you are sent. Do what you were meant to do." It occurs to you that this is how God works with people too. He places each one in the world, some in rich soil, some in harder places, and still he gives each the same care, the same chance to grow. You wonder if the sower thinks of that as he works, or if it's simply become part of who he is, something woven into him over years of doing this same task. The wind shifts slightly, brushing against your face. A few seeds drift farther than expected, gliding toward the edges of the field. You find yourself holding your breath as they land, almost as if willing them to take root despite the odds. You realize, with a soft ache in your chest, that you can't control where they fall either. Still, you walk on beside him, step for step. The sound of the seeds falling becomes a steady rhythm, blending with the rustle of the grass and the distant hum of life in the hills. It's not loud, but it's enough to remind you something important is happening here, even if no one else is watching.
Some seeds rest along the beaten, dusty path. You notice them lying there, exposed, their pale shells stark against the compacted earth. The path runs like a narrow scar through the field, its surface hardened from years of footsteps and cartwheels. It's not unkind ground. It's simply been pressed too long, too often, to open itself easily. You crouch down for a moment, watching the way the seeds shift slightly when the breeze passes over them. They don't sink in. There's no softness here to welcome them. Still, they remain, scattered where the sower's hand has placed them, as though waiting for a chance that may or may not come. The sower doesn't skip the path. He walks along its edge, letting the seeds fall just as freely here as anywhere else. His face doesn't change, and his stride doesn't falter. You realize that he isn't choosing where to give and where to withhold. He gives to every place the same. This, too, is part of the lesson. Now you feel the heat radiating up from the path, even though the sun is still climbing. The packed earth holds warmth differently than the softer soil. It reflects it back, making the air shimmer just above the ground. You can almost see the seeds trembling slightly in the light. A cartwheel track runs across one stretch, its grooves still deep. You trace it with your eyes, imagining the weight that made it. The sower steps over it without comment, but you can tell he's seen it too.
Maybe he knows that life here will be harder, that the seed will face more than just the heat. There's a quiet ache in watching those seeds stay on the surface, unburied. You want to nudge them into the soil, to cover them gently with a bit of dust, to give them a chance. But you don't. Something in the sower's calm tells you that this isn't your part to play. The scattering is his work. The growing, or the lack of it, belongs to God. From somewhere overhead, you hear the faint cry of birds. At first it's distant, but it draws closer. The sound sharp, yet not alarming. The sower keeps walking, his eyes ahead, but you can feel the shift in the air. Something is coming for those seeds.
Birds descend quietly, carrying the seeds away unseen. You first notice their shadows, a quick flicker across the ground, passing over your feet and the sower's robe. Then they are there, wings folding and unfolding in a soft, practiced motion. Their feathers catch the light in muted shades of brown and gray, blending so naturally with the earth that they seem to rise from it. They do not come in a noisy rush, no flapping chaos or startled calls, just a calm, deliberate arrival, as though they know their place in this moment. One tilts its head toward a seed, the tiny glint of its eye catching yours before its beak closes over the grain. Another hops along the hardened path, pecking here and there, each movement precise. The sower does not chase them away. You expect him to, at least with a wave of his hand, but he keeps walking, his eyes on the stretch of land ahead. There's no anger in his face, only a stillness that suggests he's seen this before, many times, and knows that it is simply part of the way of things. You watch as the birds gather the seeds one by one, some lifting away into the sky with their prizes, others lingering to find more. They are small creatures, almost weightless, yet their presence here is powerful. Where the seed could not enter the soil, it will now go elsewhere, perhaps dropped along another path, perhaps eaten, perhaps carried farther than you can imagine. A strange thought comes to you then. Maybe the work is not lost. Maybe the scattering is broader than your eyes can see, and the seed's journey does not end simply because it did not grow where it first landed. The breeze carries the faint rustle of their wings as they take to the air again, some in pairs, others alone. The path is quieter now, its surface bare once more. The sower does not look back. His hand dips into the bag again, and another arc of seed falls ahead, glittering briefly in the light before meeting the ground. You take a step forward, realizing that even loss can be quiet, and still the work goes on. Other seeds settle where stones sleep beneath earth. At first, you can't see the stones. They lie hidden just beneath a thin layer of soil, like bones resting under skin. The ground here looks promising enough, its surface dark and even, but the sower's steady stride tells you he knows what lies below. When his hand scatters the seeds, some fall here, landing softly before disappearing into the shallow covering. They seem safe at first. You watch the grains slip beneath the surface, as though tucking themselves into bed. There's no sign of the hard, unyielding truth beneath them, yet you feel it, in the way the ground resists your steps, offering no give, no welcome. The air is still here, almost heavier, as if the land is holding its breath. You kneel for a moment, pressing your fingers into the soil. At first, it yields, but only barely. Within an inch, your touch meets the cool edge of stone, smooth, solid, immovable. No root could twist its way deep here without hitting that barrier. The sower doesn't avoid these spots.
He lets the seed fall just as freely here as anywhere else. You glance at him, half expecting an explanation, but he only gives a faint nod, as though to say, "It is not for you to decide where life will try to grow." From somewhere nearby, a grasshopper springs up, landing in the stubble of last season's growth. It chirps once, then falls silent, as though even it senses that this ground is not the same as the softer fields you walked earlier. Still, the seeds rest there, hidden from sight. You can almost imagine them trying to send out the first whisper of a root, feeling their way downward only to meet the unyielding cold of stone. They will reach upward instead, toward the warmth of the sun. But you know already what that means when the heat comes. The sower steps onward, his robe brushing the tops of weeds that cling to the edges of the stony patch. His hand dips again into the bag. The rhythm continues. Step, scatter, breathe. And you walk beside him, aware now that not all hidden things are treasures. Some are barriers, quiet and unseen, yet strong enough to shape what will or will not grow. Roots struggle shallowly beneath an unyielding, thirsty ground. The seeds that found their place above the stones have begun to stir, their tiny shells splitting with the effort of new life. You cannot see them yet, but in your mind you picture the delicate threads of roots pushing downward, only to meet the cold, solid surface too soon. Above, the shoots emerge quickly. The soil here, thin though it is, holds just enough warmth to coax them upward in a burst of green. At first, it looks like hope, the kind of sudden, almost miraculous growth that catches the eye. You walk past, noticing their tender stems swaying slightly in the light breeze, their leaves still fresh and unmarked. But you know the truth. There's nothing deep to anchor them, no reservoir to draw from when the days grow hotter. The stones beneath trap the heat and repel the roots, forcing them to spread only sideways, clinging to whatever crumbs of soil they can find. The sower walks on without pausing, his eyes forward, his pace unchanged. You wonder if he feels a twinge of sadness, knowing these shoots will not last. Yet there is no heaviness in his step, only that same steady trust that the seed's fate rests in larger hands than his. You crouch to touch one of the tiny plants. Its stem bends easily beneath your finger, the leaves trembling as though startled. You withdraw your hand quickly, feeling how fragile it is. Life here is like a candle burning too fast, bright, beautiful, but brief. The sun climbs higher, and the ground begins to radiate its warmth upward. Already, the leaves of some shoots droop slightly, their edges curling inward. You imagine the roots below pressing desperately against the stone, seeking water that is not there. And still, the sower's shadow moves ahead of you, stretching across the uneven ground. His hand dips once more into the bag, and the soft rattle of seeds is a reminder. The work continues, even here, even in places where the future is short. The sun's weight grows heavier, pressing down like an unseen hand. Shadows shrink until they cling to the bases of the stones, leaving no shelter for the tender shoots. Their green begins to pale, the tips of the leaves turning brittle, curling inward as if to guard the last drops of life within. You kneel beside them, hearing the faintest whisper in your mind. Not words exactly, but a feeling. It is the quiet panic of something living that knows it cannot endure. You imagine the roots below, thin as threads, tapping every grain of moisture from the shallow soil, reaching sideways with desperate fingers, and then nothing more to find. The sower walks ahead, his back to the failing plants. You feel a flicker of frustration. Why scatter seed here at all? Why offer life where it will surely wither? But then a thought rises like a slow breath. Perhaps the scattering is not for us to measure. The seed's journey, whether long or short, is part of something larger than survival. Even these fragile stems are part of the telling, part of the truth the sower is shaping in his path. A warm gust moves through, stirring the dust at your feet. Tiny grains rise and dance before settling again. The sound is soft, like a sigh. You look to the horizon where the sower moves steadily, each cast of his hand sending an arc of seed into the light. You rise to follow, though your gaze lingers on the struggling shoots. You know that soon their green will fade to a dull straw color. The stones will keep their place, unmoved and unmoving. Yet for a brief time, the soil here knew the spark of life.
The path narrows until you feel the prickle of branches on your arms. The air changes here. It is thicker, holding the scent of green that has been crushed and bruised. You see the thorns before you feel them, long, pale spikes that jut from stems tangled like rope. They seem to guard the soil beneath, knitting themselves into a wall that resists the sower's step. But he does not turn aside. His arm swings once more, and the seeds scatter, falling onto patches of dark earth between the thorny stems. You notice how rich the ground looks here, moist, shaded, almost inviting. The seeds vanish into it quickly, as if this place could be their shelter. At first, you think the thorns are far enough away not to matter. Sprouts emerge, lifting pale heads toward the light. They grow quickly, feeding on the strength of the soil. But the thorns, too, are growing. Their roots are already deep, their stems already strong, and they push upward with relentless force. You watch the green of the young plants dull as shadows spread over them. The thorns twist around the tender shoots, their barbs catching on the fragile leaves. There is no malice here, only the hunger of something that will not share. In your mind, the sensation returns, the quiet pulse of living things. But this time, the feeling is not of thirst, it is of being pressed, squeezed, suffocated. You imagine the air between the leaves growing thinner, the light harder to reach. The shoots do not fall at once. They fight in silence, their stems bending but not yet broken. The sower stands still for a moment, watching. His expression is unreadable. Not sorrow, not surprise, but a knowing acceptance. The scattering here was not a mistake. You realize he sows with the understanding that not all will endure, but all must be given the chance to begin. A thorn catches the skin on your wrist as you move past, leaving a thin red line. The sting lingers, a reminder of the closeness of struggle. Behind you, the young plants are disappearing into a wall of shadow. Ahead, the path opens into light again, and the sound of wind through open fields calls you forward. The light ahead grows warmer, more golden than before, spilling across the ground like liquid. You step into it, and the path widens until there is no path at all, only a stretch of open field, breathing beneath the sky. The wind moves gently here,
carrying the low hum of insects and the distant murmur of running water. The sower walks into the middle of this space and pauses. He dips his hand into the bag once more, and the seeds slide between his fingers as though they know where they are meant to fall. His arm swings outward, and the motion is slower this time, almost reverent. The seeds arc through the air and drop into the soil with the faintest sound, like rain touching still water. You kneel to see the ground more closely. The soil here is deep and soft, dark as shadow, but warm to the touch. It smells of rain that fell long ago and of roots that have long since returned to the earth. When the seeds sink into it, they do not vanish abruptly. They settle, embraced rather than swallowed. Time shifts in this place. The waiting feels different. Not a restless watching, but a quiet certainty. Shoots emerge, straight and strong, their leaves unfolding without strain. The stems sway easily in the wind, bending but never breaking. The roots beneath them drink deeply, unseen but essential, threading through the soil in search of more life. As days pass, though here a day feels more like a season, you see how the plants thicken and rise. Their green deepens, and their tips reach higher than your shoulder, higher than your head. You can hear the sound of them growing, a low rustle, like whispers passing between friends. And then the change. Blossoms opening, their colors vivid against the sea of green, and soon after, the swell of fruit and grain. The air becomes heavy with the scent of ripeness, and when you reach out, the plants yield easily to your touch, as if offering themselves freely. The harvest comes not as a single moment, but as an unending abundance. Everywhere you look, the field is alive, bowing under the weight of what it has produced, 30-fold, 60-fold, 100-fold more than the sower scattered. The numbers are not exact. They are the language of plenty, the kind that overflows measure. You glance at the sower. His hands are empty now, the bag at his side slack and still. Yet his face is lit by something that feels older than the sun and gentler than the wind. You understand then, the work is never only in the sowing or in the soil. It is in the patience to wait, the faith to believe in what cannot be seen until it comes. The wind shifts, and the seeds in your own pocket, a handful you didn't remember taking, press lightly against your palm. The path is behind you, but perhaps it isn't meant to be walked only once. You close your hand around the seeds, feeling their small weight, and wonder where your steps will take them next. The sower knelt in the field one cool morning, his hand brushing against a small patch of green that had risen from the soil. It was not the tallest plant in the field, nor the brightest, but there was something steady about it, something that felt alive with quiet strength. Beneath the surface, unseen by any eye, its roots were stretching deep into the earth. They found water where others could not. They held firm when the wind pushed across the land. Each day, without hurry, the plant grew, not because it tried harder, but because it was anchored where it belonged. The sower smiled. He knew the rains would still come, and the sun would still shine, whether anyone watched or not. Growth was not always loud, and the most faithful work was often hidden. In the stillness of the field, the good soil was doing its work, and the seed was becoming what it was meant to be. And so, in the quiet place, life continued, slow, certain, and beautiful. Days passed into weeks, and the field began to change. Some plants rushed upward, thin and eager, only to wither when the heat came. Others, though slower, held strong through the shifting skies. The sower understood what the plants could not, that the seasons each had their purpose. Spring was for beginning. Summer was for enduring. Autumn was for fruit. Even winter, with its silence, was not an ending but a rest, where roots gathered strength for what was ahead. The seed in the good soil did not fight the pace set for it. It grew when it was time to grow, and it waited when it was time to wait. There was no fear in its stillness, for it trusted the hand that had placed it there. And the sower watched with patient joy, knowing that what was unseen today would be visible in its season.
One morning, the first signs appeared. Tiny blossoms unfolded in the warm light, their fragrance drifting gently across the field. The sower bent low, smiling, not because the harvest was complete, but because it had begun. Each bloom was a promise, a sign that the seed had taken root deeply enough to bear fruit. The plants in rocky soil had already faded, their shallow roots unable to sustain them. The thorns had choked others, stealing their strength. But here, in the good soil, life pressed outward with quiet certainty. Birds rested among the branches, finding shelter. The wind carried the soft rustle of leaves, a song that only the patient could hear. And the sower whispered to the growing plants, a blessing for what was yet to come.
The season turned, and the field stood golden beneath the sun. Heads of grain bowed under their own weight, shimmering in the light like a sea of quiet triumph. The sower moved through the rows, his hands brushing against the ripened stalks, each one a story of endurance. Some plants yielded 30-fold, others 60, and some a full 100-fold, each according to the measure of its root and the richness of the soil. The air was thick with the scent of grain, the hum of bees, and the distant call of doves returning to their nests. It was not just a harvest of food, but a harvest of faith, for the sower knew that every grain began in darkness, hidden beneath the soil, waiting for the right time to break into the light. And now the field was living proof that what is sown in patience will one day be gathered in joy.
When the harvest was gathered and stored safely in the barn, the sower lingered in the quiet of the empty field. The stubble of the cut grain rustled softly in the breeze, and the scent of earth still rose from the ground. He thought of the day he first cast the seed, how some had fallen on the path, some among rocks, some among thorns, how quickly those had been lost. But the seed that fell on good soil had endured, weathering wind, drought, and shadow, to bring forth life in abundance. As he walked toward home, the lessons of the field walked with him. He knew that hearts, like soil, must be tended, broken up with humility, softened with compassion, kept free of the choking weeds of distraction and bitterness. The good seed of God's Word will take root only where there is room for it to grow. The sower also remembered that growth is often unseen. Weeks had passed when there was no sign of life above ground, and yet the seed was alive in the dark, pushing roots deeper, drawing unseen strength. Faith works the same way. It does not always show its progress, but in time the fruit appears. By the time he reached the small light glowing in his cottage window, the sower's heart was at peace. He knew he had done what was his to do. He had sown faithfully, trusted the rain and the sun, and left the increase to God. And now the full barns and the quiet joy in his spirit told him the truth. What is planted in hope and tended in faith will in its season be gathered in joy. And so he whispered a prayer, both for the seeds already in the ground and for the ones yet to be sown. Lord, let my heart always be good soil.
The day's work is done. The sower stands at the edge of the quiet field, looking over the land where golden stubble now sways gently in the evening breeze. The air is soft and cool, carrying the faint scent of grain, earth, and the memory of summer sun. The light fades slowly, the sky painted in shades of amber, rose, and deepening blue. He takes a deep breath, feeling the stillness settle over him like a warm blanket. The field is empty now, but in his mind, he can still see the seeds falling from his hand, one by one, scattering across the soil. Some found no place to grow, yet others sank deep into good earth. They took root, they grew, they endured, and in time they bore fruit in abundance. He thinks of the long weeks when nothing seemed to happen, when the ground appeared barren, yet life was quietly unfolding beneath the surface. Growth, he knows, is not always visible. Faith, like the seed, often works in silence. It takes its time. It reaches deep before it rises tall. The sower smiles, knowing he has done his part, tending the ground, guarding against weeds, trusting the rain, welcoming the sun. The harvest is proof enough. What is planted with care, watered with patience, and trusted to God's keeping will bear its fruit in the right season. The breeze grows softer. The first stars appear, scattered like seeds in the darkening sky. His steps are slow as he walks toward the small cottage in the distance where a warm light glows in the window. The sound of his boots on the path blends with the gentle rustle of dry grass, a steady rhythm that calms the mind. By the time he reaches his door, the world feels quiet and safe. The work is done. The harvest is gathered. There is nothing more to carry tonight. The sower rests in the truth that tomorrow will bring its own sowing, its own growth, its own quiet miracles. And as he lays down to sleep, his last thought is a prayer. Lord, keep my heart like good soil, ready, open, and at peace. And now, as the story rests in your heart, so should you. You imagine the fields at the edge of the village, the last light of day spilling gold across rows of turned soil. The sower's footsteps are slow now, his work finished, the weight of the seed bag gone from his shoulder. The air carries the smell of earth, rich, ready, waiting. You hear the faint rustle of stalks swaying in the evening breeze, the low hum of crickets, and somewhere far off, the soft splash of water as a woman draws from a well. There's a peace here, the kind that comes when nothing more needs to be done. The seed has been scattered. The rest belongs to God. You let your thoughts drift like those seeds, some landing near, some far, all held in the unseen care of the one who gives growth. In this moment, there is no hurry, no striving, just trust. The kind of trust that lets you breathe deeper, knowing that every season has its time and every seed its purpose. So let the sounds fade, let your eyes grow heavy. The same God who watches over the seeds in the soil watches over you tonight. You can rest in His keeping. Tomorrow the sun will rise on fields unseen, but for now you are safe, you are loved, you are in His hands.